pleasure to get to know you.
Yeah.
We love to come to Ashland. We live in Mount Shasta. We've been married since September. We met 2 years ago at spiritualsingles.com online, and it's been a very rich experience. And we've both gained a lot of experience with relationships, and this is one of our favorite topics. This whole thing about, wow, there's men and there's women, but no. There's masculine and feminine energies inside each of us, regardless of gender and regardless of sexual orientation. Wow, what's that all about? And I'm sure many of you know and have looked into that or done work in that territory. So tonight we want to present some information, and then the way that we do like to teach is there'll be some journaling, and you'll have a chance to reflect on what we've shared, what might have come up for you in your heart, in your consciousness. There'll be a chance to have a sharing with somebody else that's here and share your experience, and then we'll talk about it out loud. So our whole orientation is we want to not be the experts. We don't have all the answers, but we like to create a space where you can discover something. Hopefully you'll walk out and go, that helps. I didn't realize that, or I want to look more into that. That's what we're trying to fertilize here in our caring exchange with you.
Okay. Yeah, and so maybe specifically what we'll do tonight is really learn more about the energetic magic, we can call it that, the synergy, the alchemy that comes together when we acknowledge and we nurture and we cultivate the masculine and the feminine within ourselves, and then choose to utilize that in all relationships. The relationship we have with work, the relationship we have with our neighbor, the relationship we have with an intimate other. And we'll be including a lot of, like Gavin said, self-reflection. So you can really assess, where am I sitting? Not just in the masculine and feminine, because I have been a student of this, as many of you probably have, for years. I mean, anyone been playing with masculine, feminine energies, become aware of it. What we're mostly interested in is how those dynamics can evolve. Because the experience and the expression of the feminine, the experience and the expression of the masculine has a journey of development. And so we'll be looking at what is the masculine in its young expression? What does it feel like, and how do we experience it when we cultivate and mature it in ourselves? So we'll be looking at both of those in a broad scope, but also I always keep looking at myself. And those of you that are teachers, anyone a facilitator of groups, I know a lot of times we live in Ashland and Mount Shasta. Half of us do this for a living, right? Every time we choose a topic that we're going to share, I feel like I'm steeping in it for about a month before we're presenting it. And we actually just presented this online. We have a monthly series we do online. We're doing it live tonight, which is really such a treat. But I've been really looking at, again, in what ways could I grow up around my feminine? In what ways could I balance how I'm playing my masculine and feminine in the world? And as we all know, awareness is curative. So tonight, I really hope, like you said, that it's an opportunity to become more aware.
You'll have a chance to acknowledge a lot of your growth and a lot of your strengths in both of these dimensions. Because we grow. And you'll also have a chance to go, that's an area that I think I need to cultivate a little. That's part of my garden I haven't really tended to. That doesn't mean it's wrong, doesn't mean you should be any different than you are, but it does point towards, wow, there's fertile territory for new expression, new possibilities in how you show up in the world and in your relationships.
And in your consciousness. Because our relationship with ourself, our dynamic of the masculine and feminine, we were talking about it in the drive up. Anyone who studies Hinduism or Kundalini, or even we look at the medical staff and we see the snakes weaving, that's the masculine and the feminine ascending within our own beings, within the technology of the body. And so this is an opportunity to first find home here, But we will also explore a little bit how masculine and feminine polarities can play out in intimate relationships and how we can become conscious of them and make choice around them. I do want to say one thing before we get going.
Oh, good.
Yeah. So everything we're talking about is also available online. This is a 22-page ebook that we just put together in the process of developing this. And it's a guidebook with a lot of journal entries and prompts and tables. And if you're interested in getting this, there's a QR code and you can just use your phone and scan it on the way out. And if that technology doesn't work for you, talk to me and we'll make sure that you get a copy.
So this includes all of the slides. Once, if you say you'd like to have what we can give you, you'll get all the slides, you'll get this interactive worksheet, you'll even get a video replay of us doing this talk that we did a week ago online. So you don't have to feverishly take notes about something unless you have a revelation and you want to capture that. We'll be providing all of that to you so you can relax and just receive. We'll also talk a lot about our relationship, our feminine and masculine inside, how it plays out with us, the ways that our relationship has ushered a lot of growth in both dimensions for both of us, and it continues to do that every day.
Yeah, and that's something that we consciously are choosing to do, is to really be balanced and integrated ourselves, so that how we're playing our relationship, it leaves a lot of room for this man to receive and be in his feminine nature, because he has a really strong feminine, and also to be in your masculine and vice versa.
Yeah. Yep.
But it's you that we're interested in, and it's what we share. Take what works, what resonates, explore it for yourself. We're just going to guide an opportunity to find your own revelations. When we do these online, we do a lot of interaction. Tonight we're going to do a little bit more lecture, but we are definitely going to also leave space to grow together.
Yeah. So our opportunity as souls, our perspective, we're souls having a human experience. It's helpful to hold it that way if that works for you. But our opportunity as souls is to be students of our consciousness and evolve, to open wide to love and truth in all their expressions. So for us, we've come together and we have a rapturous relationship. We're very, very grateful. But we're also called to talk about relationship. How do we do dating? How do we develop a relationship long term that's healthy, that's loving, that actually facilitates healing and awakening? That's all possible. A lot of our work, independent of each other before we met, was working in consciousness, supporting people in relationships, supporting all of this work. Now we're combining it. We're doing a lot of the work that we do together is involving with intimate relationships.
Soul inspired, meaning soul first, essence first, and the opportunity when we talk about anything that's in the realm of polarity to utilize that, to dance with it, and to really feel the flow and the complementary aspects of polarity. So polarity is a universal principle, the magnetic pole between the north and the south. Those are poles. It's magnetic. They're drawn to each other. It's how the planet exists. The charge between positive and negative ions, the electrifying attraction that procreates and results in the miracle of new life.
So these polarities are not merely opposites, but they're complementary. It's like when we go to start our car and we go outside, the battery's got negative and positive. Then we have access to all that energy. How all that works, I'm not Einstein or a physicist, but it is fascinating. Even to hold a magnet with shards with metal, it's like, what is going on here? We're interested in how that plays out in our consciousness and in relationships. So they're complementary forces.
Yep.
Gavin, if I may stop you 1 second, just your jacket is rubbing against the mic.
Here, I'll just take it off.
Excuse me, okay.
How's that?
Never. Yeah, it's okay. It's fine.
All right. We want good sound. Okay.
All right. how are we doing in terms of where we're centered and everything?
that good?
Okay, cool,
Okay.
cool. I want to focus on the complementary part because I've been really contemplating as a soul in a human experience how we're here on this earth plane that is just set up with opposites. And in that kind of a dynamic, it's easy to fall into opposition
Polarizing.
and to polarize. And what we're wanting to focus on and why we gave these examples of north and south is while they're opposite, they're magnetically drawn, and we couldn't exist without both of them. And so same with the masculine and feminine as we go through this. How's the masculine give room for the feminine? How does the feminine allow for the masculine? And this kind of complementary activity is what allows us to really transcend, to move beyond the polarity. Okay, so we were going to start with just some commonly associated feminine masculine traits, just to have the same nomenclature, and then we're get into the juicy stuff, where we're going to look at how we evolve these frequencies.
So on the feminine side, I'll start because
I'll do the feminine.
All right, you do
okay.
the feminine.
All right, tonight. Just
Okay.
tonight, you know.
All right.
We take turns, right? All right, so feminine energy is often associated with love and compassion, which is one wing of the heart.
masculine is often associated with truth and integrity. The key when looking at all this for me is to not get too seriously involved in concepts. Pay attention to the experience and see if that actually allows you to have revelation about how you might be able to grow. But it's not like we're telling you the truth. This is what you have to believe. This is just some ways to begin to look at these and have them begin to move and shape inside of you so that you can actually grow in new ways.
So yin, that's your turn.
And yang.
Very good. And Shakti,
And Shiva.
yeah, from Hinduism. So these are just, these have been around forever. It's just, if we look around in the world, we see it. We see dark and night. The unseen and the moon frequencies are more associated with feminine energy.
Often people reflect on masculine as more bright, light, day, visible, the sun.
The feminine energy is more subtle or unseen, as I said before.
Masculine is more direct, directional,
And feminine is flow and fluidity.
while the masculine, remember this isn't man, woman, this is masculine energies inside everyone, is structure and container on the masculine side.
And feminine circular, round.
And the masculine linear, straight, action, direction.
I think this next one has been a really big exploration for me recently, and it is the polarity or the opposition between receiving and giving. So on the feminine side, to really learn to receive.
That's been huge to watch you receive you, but receive me, receive us, and me to be able to bring more as a man or masculine energy than I ever have in my entire life. You welcome that, you take that in. I'm spellbound by how you surrender.
And the feminine is often attributed to being more nurturing.
And the masculine as the providing, again, not the man, masculine energy. Masculine energy inside joy also provides. Feminine inside of me nurtures.
And then the feminine energy is a trusting or a surrendering frequency.
While the masculine is more protective.
And the feminine is known as the intuitive and the emotional.
And the masculine as often associated with more logical.
Now, when I look at this, I'm like, thumbs up to all of it. and even just this last one here, we've, intuition and logic win brought together are such a powerful pair. When we're making choices about our life, when we do this a lot in our life, we're very intuitive in how we choose as a couple, where we're headed, what we're doing, what we're purchasing.
What we're presenting tonight.
Yeah, and there's this great brain and this logic that we also get to use. So as I also look at this, and I'm inviting you to just kind of tune in, right? So bring it home. What does this mean to me? In what ways am I feeling fluid and flowing in my life? Or am I more structured in my life? Am I leading with structure? Do I have enough structure? Because when we have structure, it allows us to be more fluid. That's something I see play out a ton in business. And I've spent a lot of years being a business coach and helping people grow their businesses. And I find a lot of people want to jump into fluidity and flow and spontaneity, which is fabulous. And that's really where a lot of us shine. But it's important to have the structure, the operations, the systems. And we get to do that for ourselves so that we can then be more fluid in our lives.
The cool thing is once these start to get activated and evolved within each person, like me, I'm a spiritual therapist the last 40 some years. In any given session, I'm very intuitive, I'm very nurturing, and I'm also truthful and share what I see, and I'm empowering and direct, and I hold space, but I'm also tremendously compassionate as a healing presence. So during any session, I'm moving and shifting the percentages and what I respond to and how to meet the client where they are and invite them into the next space. And I'm moving from masculine to feminine, feminine to masculine, because I've worked a long time to make those available to me so that I can use them as appropriate moment to moment to moment. And the same whether you're in a business or you're in a family as a mom, the same.
And in duo, simultaneously, to be able to bring love and truth, which is, I think maybe we take a moment and talk a little bit more about the love, compassion, and the truth, integrity. You kind of brought it up, but
Wings of the heart.
Yeah. And then inquire for yourself. Have I been leaning into, which is very easy for a lot of us to do, compassion and love, but holding back speaking truthfully? Mm-hmm. Have I been so loving and compassionate with myself, self-love, good thing, but have I been honest with myself? Have I come home and stepped into integrity with myself? And it's a really powerful place to land when both can be activated together so that we're really bringing forth truth and love.
So let's go to the first polarity.
Okay.
So here's where we would like to have you, if you have a journal, to capture what you perceive to be either areas. First, we're going to do the feminine. What's on this side is the unevolved feminine. That's not negative or positive. It's just not developed. It's young. These are some of the characteristics. The evolved feminine are developed, some of these characteristics. So as we review these briefly, we want to invite you to write down what are areas that I actually have developed and cultivated in strength. And I'm strong, surrender, nurturing, whatever it is. And this is for men and women. And also identify, there's an area that I need to cultivate. There's an area I actually have been avoiding my entire life. And I see it now.
So what we'll do is we'll just go line by line because they correspond. And then you can take some notes as we go. And Gavin, I have this here so we can actually look more forward. All right, so go ahead, you start.
So the unevolved feminine, or young, one characteristic is innocent or pretending to know. The evolved feminine, or the mature feminine, is intuitive. They're connected with their deep knowing. Also, the unevolved feminine, or the young, can be gullible and ungrounded. When you see that as teenagers grow up, this is a developmental process everybody goes through. But as a person evolves their feminine polarity, they become more mystical and they become more grounded.
So let's go to the next one, which I'm going to start with the highest emanation, which is really surrendering and trusting. Surrendering and trusting. And that happens for an evolved feminine can surrender and trust when an evolved feminine aspect of ourselves feels safe and secure. And do we feel safe and secure on this planet? Do we feel safe and secure in our relationships? Do we feel safe and secure within ourselves? Then there's a natural surrendering. There's a trusting. But until that evolution is, reached, there's a fearful tone. When there isn't that kind of safety, the unevolved feminine can be passive and self-abandoning.
And you can see that where sometimes, whether it's men or women, they open themselves up to abuse. So it's there's so many traumas that happen in life, in everyone's life, that help us develop and evolve. Even in a relationship, we get triggered. Trauma happens in the relationship because we have unresolved issues from the past. The relationship is supposed to trigger it. And if we learn how to work it, we can use a relationship to cultivate and evolve our feminine and our masculine. So another characteristic of the unevolved feminine or young is martyr, self-sacrificing or smothering. It's more of a collapse, more of like a victim. Again, not good or bad, just a level of development. The evolved feminine is...
I'm just gonna shift this because
You're being softer too.
it's okay. That's just a place
Thank you.
you like to think
Sure.
I want to just piggyback while they're doing that on something Gavin just said that feels really important to reiterate, just kind of highlight, that we believe, and so you can try this on, that life is so for us that we're going to be given circumstances to grow and evolve. So all of this is naturally happening. We can be aware of it and we can watch it, but it's going to happen, and situations are going to show up where we're going to learn to move over into to develop and to mature.
And I think it'd be fair to say, in a general way, that if you grow up, let's say, with the people around you, father, mother, family, and they were unevolved in their feminine, you'll learn those things most likely, and that will be your patterning, because that's what you know. And if you happen to be the good fortune, like I had a father who was extraordinary in his feminine, even more than his masculine. And he gave me gifts like crazy over here. My dad gave me, a man, things over here that I will have have had my entire life. I'm incredibly grateful. So, and if we don't have parents that are modeling these things, then we look for teachers. We look for healthy relationships so we can actually begin to evolve.
So empathic or inner directed, the ability to feel people's feelings, to be empathic, to have empathy is a very feminine characteristic available to all of us. When it's underdeveloped, it's wishy-washy. It's easily influenced by others. So a less evolved feminine characteristic in the process of growing is being easily influenced.
So let's talk about emotions. So the unevolved feminine was often characterized by an experience of being ruled and swayed by emotions. Whereas as someone matures and gets more evolved, they have emotional depth, they learn how to relate to the emotions in a healthy way, and they learn emotional intelligence.
And we saw it on the other slide. We talked about the feminine being more fluid and flowy, which is such a lovely way to live in this world. It's very spontaneous. But when it isn't rooted in self-awareness, it can be really wishy-washy.
So the unevolved feminine can be overly dramatic, where the evolved can be boundless and expressive. There's a freedom and a strength in that.
And the next one has to do with radiance and the evolution of the feminine being a very radiant, self-honoring frequency. But in initial stages, it might be more obsessed with image and appearance. And maybe you're also just thinking of young girls or young boys or yourself or people you know as we go through this?
Yeah, they're not rooted at home yet. So another unevolved feminine would be covertly manipulative, not direct, trying to get their needs met. And again, remember, this is men or women. And the evolved is healing, guidance, and allowing. There's a strength of how they show up in the world to get their needs met and express themselves directly.
Sex as a way to feel loved. And as that grows, that becomes utilizing sexuality as a way to create intimacy and connection with self, with another. So there's a growth opportunity there.
So the evolved feminine has the opportunity, is drawn to sex for intimacy and connection and union. So another unevolved feminine characteristic or quality is disassociated from the body. It's like not home, not present inside. And sometimes that happens because trauma has occurred in their lives. There's a good reason why someone is disassociated from the body. Maybe they had an alcoholic parent. It wasn't safe to be home. So, but their evolution with their feminine polarity can be hampered until they start to grow and become available to nurturing environments where they have another reference point and they can begin to let go of the trauma, and then their development on the feminine can just continue.
And so this last one is about sacred intimacy. The feminine loves to connect and be intimate and is interested in matters of the heart. In its less evolved, its young expression, it can be into gossip, talking about other people. And we talked about it earlier, but also the drama, overly dramatic. So here's a table to reference, like I said, it's in this handout. And like Gavin said, we're more interested in what this means to you than the concepts and the opportunity for self-reflection. So let's see, what we'd like to do is take a little bit of time first individually.
Yeah, why don't we do this? How many of you wrote down things that you felt were strengths in the feminine? How many of you wrote some things down that you felt landed in that place?
Just started? Yeah. Let's give a little time.
Okay, and then also what areas where there's an opportunity. Let's give you a couple minutes to journal and just reflect and capture the areas where you feel as if you've developed and you have a sense of rootedness and strength in the feminine, evolved, and those in which there's an opportunity for growth and evolution. So we'll just hold it in a quiet place for the next couple of minutes. Yes?
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely. Your inner feminine, and we'll do the masculine next. We're all going to do both because we absolutely all have all of this.
I want to say something important that I've noticed throughout my life, professionally, personally. There's a man named James Hillman who's a depth psychologist. He's no longer alive, but he wrote a book called The Soul's Code. And he talked about the circuitry that we have of genius inside, that we all have. So what I want to say is it's very clear to me that all of us, regardless of gender or sexual orientation, we are wired to evolve and come into these qualities. This is the natural way of things, just like nature. It's available to us. This is how we grow. This is who we can become. Nobody's denied that. If you cultivate it, and we're going to talk more about that tonight, these are all available to everybody. Okay, so let's turn towards someone in silence and pick a partner, and then we'll give you some instructions. So just turn towards someone so you all have a partner. And
if you don't have a partner, just put your hand up in the air, and there might be a group of 3, we'll see.
raise your hand if you don't have a partner. Do you have a partner?
Okay, maybe the three of you can come together. Perfect. Great.
You have a partner?
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, the three of you. You
Okay,
guys are
great.
great. Great.
All right. So what we're going to do is you'll each, if we can just have your awareness, you'll each have 2 minutes. 2?
Sure.
Okay. 2 minutes to share with your partners when it's your turn. Areas where you're evolved and you see that and you can acknowledge that and you appreciate that, and where you also recognize where you're less evolved and you have an opportunity to grow. So you'll have 2 minutes to share with your partner, and then we'll switch to the second partner, and then that partner will have 2 minutes to share the same areas where they feel as if they've cultivated a strength and in the feminine, and also where they can grow. And when you're listening to your partner, no need to respond. All you have to do is receive, and give them the space to just share their experience, and you can take it in and get to know them. Any questions? So here's where we would like to welcome hearing from you, what you're discovering, what you're hearing tonight, what you might have jotted down, what you might have shared with your partner, any new discoveries. Okay?
Cis male. Let me just say that, a cis male. Yeah. So for me, I sit in more of the like 98% in the evolved feminine.
Yeah.
Which I had no idea. I'm like, wait, where am I lacking? Yeah, I'm a little passive, a little fearful, a little abandoning myself sometimes. But
Yeah.
like, I'm solidly engulfed in the evolved feminine. I'm very intuitive, very nurturing, very empathic.
Yeah.
You know, I'm like, yes. No. So that's where I stand.
So it was surprising to you that this model seemed to just land you 90% here.
Right. And I only started like the self-help like generation for myself.
Yeah.
Like 4 years ago.
Wow.
So this is really interesting and mind-blowing for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can tell you, I don't know, it's Corey, right?
Yeah.
So I grew up, and in my teen years, my sister was a heroin addict, and my brother became a white supremacist gang leader in the prisons and killed a lot of men. Wow. Blacks. Wow. Very traumatic for me. So I certainly didn't want to be aggressive like my brother. But my nature was more sensitive, I think, like yours.
Yeah.
Even though it's only been 4 years, it seems like you're even comfortable saying, yes, I'm evolved feminine.
Right.
I'm intuitive.
Yeah.
I'm nurturing. I'm empathic.
Absolutely.
You can even claim it. So it must be, how does it feel to recognize yourself here? Is it affirming? Is it?
Affirming and powerful.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah. Very powerful.
Yeah, yeah. Did you come up with anything over here?
Yeah, the passive abandoning self.
Yeah,
Or fearful. Yeah.
I see.
Because like in intimate relationships for me, it's like I was in a toxic one for a very long time, and now I'm evolving to, okay, I don't want that to happen, but I do want something beautiful to happen in my future. So
Yeah.
what do I have to become? So that's my intention every morning. You know, how am I gonna come to the world today?
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah.
So you're starting to live a more intentional life.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah. And it could be that part of that patterning in that relationship was based on the choice you made of who to be with.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That was my choice at that time.
I'm not trying to blame them. I'm just trying to say making a different choice could make a hell of a big difference.
And it did.
Yeah, but often we'll choose because of patterns that are unconscious.
Raise consciousness.
Yeah, in other words, where did passive in Corey come from?
Right.
It's a good question.
Yeah.
It's worth asking, it would seem to me.
And I like what you had to say about, you know, the dynamic of the unevolved, because with some of the women that I've dated in the past, like, yeah, I can recognize that.
Yeah.
And I'm not putting any power to it. You know?
Yeah.
But when I notice a lot of those are working against me in a relationship, then I love you all. This is, you know,
Yeah.
I'm passing.
Mm.
Choose differently, it sounds like.
Yeah.
And something that we talk a lot about in the whole dating arena is being able to bring things like this into the dating conversation. To be able to maybe recognize, I know one thing that happens for a lot of people is there's a leaning towards caring and nurturing. But when it gets overworked, it moves over into martyr, self-sacrificing territory. But just knowing that spectrum and being able to even bring that into a new relationship, this is something I'm working on, can be really healing and helpful.
Yeah, the good news is these things can stop us from growing if they're unconscious. Like you going, wait a minute, there's something here for me. So that awareness alone can start to begin to clarify how you can head over to that territory.
Which my prior relationship that I just ended a few weeks ago,
Yeah,
you know, I was able to be all of that on the, you know, all that evolved feminine for the most part.
yeah,
Besides the passive part.
yeah,
And I was just like, yeah, okay, I'll just brush that off.
yeah.
Yeah.
So there's some power
There's a lot.
in your future.
There is.
It's clear you're a powerful person, Corey.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I feel it too.
yeah, yeah.
And not non-egoic.
No, yeah, it's not power over, it's power with.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it is.
yeah, beautiful, beautiful. Nice sharing.
Yeah.
Yes,
Heather Hutton. I don't, how do I word this? So when I first looked at that, like in my mind, when I was thinking of evolved feminine, I automatically brought in the masculine. To be an evolved feminine, I'm gonna have more direction and more, and then now this is more like different colors and nuance, right?
Yeah.
I have a lot of the evolved feminine. I could also see the uninvolved, like you want to be influenced in a way. In nurturing and caring, like you were saying, Joy, can go to a codependent place.
yeah,
I mean, you could take almost any of that and call it evolved and uninvolved in a way. But it kind of depends on the situation. I see where maybe I have abandoned myself and not honored myself enough. Like, and sometimes at work, maybe, and then in romantic relationships. But I think part of it, definitely need to work on that. I'm not saying I don't, but is because I'm trying to be accommodating. And because I see so many parts of myself and the other. And because in a way I'm intuiting, I'm feeling into all the aspects of that person and the possibility and where they're coming from, that I think sometimes I forget about, oh yeah, these are my needs and this is what I have to bring to the table. Because there's, you know, the Mars and Pisces in me is like, let's do this together, or let's, like looking for validation. So that's the piece I'm really been working on lately, is not needing validation. Like being intuitive and being flexible and knowing, self-knowing. And then, so it's at that fine line of being cooperative and being flexible, but also like asserting your piece.
I feel like when we get into the masculine next, it would be really fun to reconnect, because a lot of what I'm hearing is your healthy and evolved masculine is a key to you being fully integrated in relationship. So there might be more coming that's going to help you integrate your ability to be assertive, which is more of a masculine trait. So this is like part of the picture. My intuition is like, let's see what happens when we get to the next piece.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder, like, am I better in the masculine in some ways. I don't know, but I think it just, it's
You know
not-
what? It's yes, and that's the beauty. We don't need to choose. We naturally are going to be both. So Corey gave us a great example of that, and I know for myself that a lot of my healing in my movement from breaking up from an 8-year relationship before I met Gavin, I needed first to evolve my masculine energy. I needed to create, and we'll get there, but more structure and safety in my life, to have clearer boundaries, to be more honest. And as I did that, the natural dynamic is that the feminine inside of us evolves to meet the masculine that we're maturing. So let's see what happens on the other side if you're willing to hang. Thank you for sharing. Yeah.
And you said Heather?
Yeah.
Heather.
Yeah, because it does seem like a lot of where this is going to really come alive for you is how do both of them intertwine and serve each other so that you don't have to say, well, I kind of like the masculine better. And it's like,
They
I
are.
have both. It's just like getting them to dance together
yeah,
in
Yeah.
different
yeah.
situations.
But I
Yes.
tell you, if your man, if their masculine inside of you starts to have an awake and evolved feminine, the masculine goes into levels you cannot have without that. So it's the mixture of both that is where the secret sauce is. And I
Let's
heard
bring
a
it
clue.
on.
I just want to say one thing, Heather,
Yeah.
sounds like you can be loving in relationship, but being truthful is the risky part. Making sure that you
Assert, she
assert
said.
your
Yeah.
own truth and don't over accommodate.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I had some lessons in
The
that.
over accommodate would be the unevolved feminine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some of how we heal the unevolved feminine is by maturing our masculine. Some of how we heal the unevolved masculine is maturing the feminine inside of ourselves. And some of how we do it is if we choose a partner who can model and create a safe space, it allows us to really evolve. One thing about the feminine, my experience of the feminine, is it flourishes when it feels safe, secure, and cherished. So if any of these feel like an opportunity for growth for you, how might you create more and more opportunities for yourself to feel safe, secure, and cherished in your own home, in your relationships with friends? And that's going to really, really support all of this in coming into its next level of expression and experience. This is all about expression and experience. Are you ready to?
No, there were a couple more hands.
Okay, time.
Over
We
here.
need
Yeah, I have a
to.
question about the difference between a natural kind of evolution from unevolved to evolved versus a reaction that developed personality disorders from unresolved trauma and how the person reacts from that, the pathological aspect.
Yeah.
And the point that manipulative, for most of the human race, women had to manipulate the man to stay alive long enough for she and her children to survive. So for most of the history of mankind, women had to be very manipulative just to survive.
But remember, we're not talking about women and men. We're talking about feminine and masculine energies.
Okay.
So you brought up a few things. Now, we started at what time, 6:30?
Go ahead, just take it.
What time did we start?
We started
7.
at 7.
Oh, okay, good.
It's 8:30.
All right, 7.
Okay.
So, yes, there are personality disorders, there are psychological and psychiatric conditions, there's trauma, and those are going to influence where someone could be stuck here and they don't develop until they actually work through, and they might have a harder time. I was traumatized by my brother and sister. I had to do a lot of work to get a hold of my wholeness, but I did, and it's possible for anybody. But you're right, there are factors that can make all of this fraught and difficult. And I hear you.
and we'll show the other slide in a moment, but this manipulative piece, the feminine is a little more secretively manipulative. And the masculine in all of us can be a little bit more direct in control manipulation, but both in their traumatized state, in the energy of fear, might run into some manipulation. Yeah.
One more and then we'll go on.
Are you going to talk about, because I've grown up, I've been mostly single and I'm also self-employed. So I've had to be very masculine in my life. And
Because of why?
being self-employed, so having to go out, get things done, create a business, make a living, and living alone. So, and just to create my own safety.
So are you saying if you've
So how-
chosen to be living alone, not be in a relationship, you've got to hold both polarities, right?
But
Which
the
it might be
feminine-
more masculine than another woman that lives with a man. Maybe.
Well, I find that it's harder for me to, now as I'm older, it's easier to get into the feminine, but I can see looking at over my life that I've had to be
More like a survival, and I have to
warrior.
step up.
I was more like a warrior.
Yeah, you were like a warrior, which is very common.
Yeah.
Yes. But it's interesting if I were to ask you a question, because I'm just curious, because I hold it a particular way. Could you see a way to view the evolved feminine as your perhaps biggest contributor to entrepreneurial success?
Yes,
Yes?
just because of my work, yeah.
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 So it's important, the stories we tell ourselves, because if
Yeah.
you tell yourself, I've just had to be masculine,
Well, I think, yes, to be successful, but I also work with women, so that's been it's been easier. But the thing is, I find that sometimes, like in relationship, that's where the issue is. That it's harder for me to just relax and receive, and to step in the feminine
yeah.
instead of just like, I'm usually the initiator, and
I
I would
understand.
love to have somebody that's more of an initiator and takes more of that,
Yeah, I do understand. And for whatever reason, that's how you feel more accustomed or comfortable. Has there been any progression in opening more to surrender and trusting on the feminine side?
In my life, yes.
Overall?
Overall, yes, definitely. But as far as relationship, probably not.
Interesting. Okay.
Well, I appreciate what you're sharing because I do a lot of women's circles and I see this dynamic and I saw that a lot in myself before we met. And it was a little bit of a misconception. In a lot of ways, I was really expressing my masculine, but not necessarily an entirely mature one. I was very, very busy and driven and tended to be a little overly aggressive. And what I, in my own consciousness, in my own studies, really practiced over time is being a really evolved masculine for myself that created safety and structure that was really stable so that I could practice being more feminine. I had found myself, and Miriam has known me for years, would you agree? I've softened
Yeah, absolutely.
in the last few years, and it was conscious. And the big key for me was to really focus on receiving. The key for me was learning how to receive in nature, to be receptive to the divine, to take in compliments when they were given, to actually ask friends and people to give more and more to me, and then to really receive it. So maybe helpful, but I also want to really appreciate what you're saying, because in this culture, in a certain dynamic that's happening right now, there are a lot of women who are just crushing it in business, and a lot of very content single women. And I can tell you, because we also work with men, and we recently did a Q&A for men only, And they're having a problem with it as much as the women, right? That so many women are so direct and initiative and masculine. And so maybe we'll talk after we go through the next slide, we can talk more about these dynamics
How it works in a relationship.
and how it works in a relationship. But hopefully tonight, my prayer is that everyone walks away with a little awareness of, oh, I've been leaning a little into this and I want to explore this. Can I create a change inside of myself? And still work in the world, be integrated, take care of ourselves. There is a beautiful also in attracting a man that is more masculine. I know you know this, I know everyone knows this. The best thing to do is just keep resting into the feminine, practice the feminine, be more, and you say this often, just know that we really are, spirit is providing for us. Trusting that, receiving can really support us in growth in that arena. Yeah.
And by knowing of you, your heart is as big as the sky. Your feminine is powerful.
Yeah, I see.
And I'd hear you about you saying, I've relied on this other energetic, but boy, it seems like there may be an opportunity to even allow yourself to receive your own feminine more. I don't know. She really took a turn. I've never met a woman who's willing to receive like she does and surrender. Oh my God. And everything in me tells me you've got a lot of sweet opportunity to cherish the feminine in you and engage it more. I don't mean to be critical of you. That's
No,
not my
I
intent.
like that. Cheers.
When the feminine feels cherished, safe, and secure, she thrives. Yeah, and this is a cool conversation too, what we're discussing, because this is like our culture right now. It's time to grow up, both in the feminine and the masculine. And I think this next section, looking at what is a healthy masculine, is very revealing, because we
Don't have a lot of role models.
don't have a lot of role models, and it might be women as much as men that are going to be the role models or the soul models of a healthy masculine. But when we have the eyes to see it, we can recognize it, we can applaud it, we can appreciate it. So that's another aspect to, I hope, to take away from tonight. Start finding more evidence in the evolution of the feminine and the masculine playing out in our culture. So we honor that intuitive as much as we honor the logic.
Okay, let's go.
Okay.
All right, here
Whatever
we
you
go.
say,
Here we go,
boss.
here we go.
Whatever you say,
So remember,
Clear boundaries.
this is not,
boss. Next.
this isn't about men and women. It's not about gender, not about sexual orientation. It's an energetic that we all have inside. The uninvolved, masculine or young, would be more associated with rule-making and forceful. We don't have to go political here, but we could also call autocrat. You know, it's unevolved. Now, the evolved is clear boundaries with respect. They can have their heart open, they can be in their strength, and they can lead.
And then this next one's really powerful as well, very similar, but the unevolved or the young masculine punishes, whereas the evolved masculine disciplines and is aware of consequences. I even think about that within myself, like if I make a misstep, am I going to punish myself or am I going to choose something different next time? Am I
Learn.
going to learn and be a student? So, and then of course as parents, are we just disciplining our children so they see that there's consequences, which is educational, or punishing? So the immature masculine punishes, mature disciplines.
The unevolved masculine also would be domineering and persuasive. It's power over versus power with. Holds presence, creates safety. It's rare to find, but when you see it, it's a thing of beauty. Wow.
Yeah, I really love the holding presence and creating safety as a masculine trait. We were looking at the feminine and we talked about being more fluid. Well, when there's a part of us that's holding presence and holding steady for ourselves, it's more easy to be fluid. The evolved masculine is wise and intelligent, whereas the younger version of that might be very fundamental and dogmatic.
A lot of rules.
A lot of, and
narrow.
you can see that in religion, people who tend to cling to the dogmatic, the religion, as opposed to just contemplating and being in their own wisdom and intelligence. So a very, a very evolved or mature masculine has its own inner authority. Which brings us to the next one.
The unevolved masculine or young would be false authority. I'm always struck by how people who like to pretend that they know, there's a physiological experience that goes with that. It's like false authority. It's an inflation, but it's very unevolved, very unaware, versus the evolved is connected and truthful. They're aware of their power, and they're aware of its impact on others and how they can serve others.
So this next line has to do with action in the world, and action being part of the masculine. And I mentioned it earlier, this is an area that was a little uninvolved for me. I was so busy taking action. And an area that I've chosen to grow is in being more focused and deliberate. So I'm taking action in the world, but not just to be busy, not just random movement.
You've grown a lot on that. Your ability to say, these are the higher octave actions, I'm not going to be involved with these.
Yeah, I'm growing up, and that's, also just having clearer boundaries with myself, more discerning.
Discernment.
Yeah, discernment.
The unevolved masculine would also be judgmental and arrogant, self-centered, versus discerning and truly confident. It's like self-confidence with a capital S.
And so an unevolved can be aggressive and harsh, and as it grows, it's clear and direct, and that plays out a lot in communication. And so if you notice yourself being harsh or aggressive in a communication with someone, that would be a good signal to move into, we can still be very truthful and clear and direct and do it with love. And that would be a more evolved communication.
So the unevolved masculine or young would be superficially charming. They know how to get their way. They kind of be a chameleon and read the room. But the mature is sincere in compliments. There is a power. They're not attempting to get someone's favor. They're attempting to honor and have a powerful exchange with somebody that's caring.
The masculine is very generous. It's back to that frequency we talked about earlier, the provider energy. So very generous in complimenting with no strings attached. The next one in sexuality. So unevolved could be having sex to de-stress, and it can often be detached. Whereas an evolved expression of the masculine is having sex to expand consciousness, utilizing sexual exchange as a way to awaken and actualize.
The unevolved masculine can have a tendency to withhold. Remember, this can be men or women. Withhold and avoid. That's what I see when people come in for marriage counseling. They've had 20 years of withholding and avoiding. The masculine, both of them, or one of them, man or woman, they won't withhold, but they'll punish. So there's a lot of immaturity and unevolved here, that for a couple to have a flourishing marriage, they both have to head in that direction. So that would be communicating clearly.
And then the last one here for the masculine is steadfast responsibility. So the masculine is very responsible. It's back to that generosity, that providing. But in its younger expression, it might feel obligated, it might take on more responsibility than is really theirs to do or yours to do. So once again, taking some time to contemplate with yourself and take a look at the table here. In what areas do you see yourself strong and evolved? Can you relate to? Do you see yourself experiencing and expressing? And are there some areas where you're noticing that you might want to grow? That there's a tendency towards any of these on the left side?
So we'll take a couple minutes. You guys can journal and just capture that and reflect on how it applies to you, your consciousness, your life. I'm thinking, Corey, that whole thing about passive, is all of these guys are going to help you immensely.
Clear and direct.
Yeah.
It's hitting right now.
Yeah.
That's the biggest one out of the evolved masculine that I feel like I need to, because I feel very discerning and confident, but not just confident, it's competent.
Competent. Nice.
Competent. And a lot of this also, while everybody's journaling, the sex to expand consciousness, that reminds me of transmutation. You know, I don't remember what book that was, but it's the transmuting through the act of giving. In that sense,
Yeah.
to embrace that connection and it flourishes. And when that happens, and I've witnessed it, it's amazing.
Right.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah. There you go. Okay, so we'll give you guys a
Would you
minute or
put
so to-
negative self-talk with the punishing?
What's that?
Would you put negative self-talk?
With the punishing, that yes.
I would certainly
Because
go
we have
there.
And I would
disciplines.
even here too, I was thinking
Yeah.
Oh,
judgmental,
judgment. Oh.
self-judgment
Yeah.
as opposed
Mhm.
to discernment.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. And aggressive and harsh with myself would be immature, as opposed to just being honest with myself about areas of growth,
Mhm.
right? So we'll do partners again, and then we'll come back and do a final sharing. We'll talk a little bit more, answer questions, but let's just take a minute with your partner again. And the group of three, you can reconvene, and we'll do 2 minutes.
Who hasn't shared or would like to share about a discovery you're having, a question you have? Yes.
This was really helpful, and I was curious about the anger piece. We were talking about that, where that can show up with the unevolved versus evolved masculine, and kind of like maybe the punishes, like if you're mad, you're punishing someone versus, you know, discipline or healthy, clear boundaries. So anyway, that was just something I noticed.
Can I share a perspective?
Please.
There's a woman named Carla McLaren, and she has written a book called, is it Language of Feelings?
The language of emotions, what our feelings are trying to tell us.
So
Yeah,
she-
great book.
She said most emotions have gotten bad press. Anger, usually the worst. And in my experience over all these years of doing therapy, anger is gorgeous. It's powerful. It's associated with truth and boundaries. The key is learning how to express it constructively versus destructively. Most people, they don't know how to manage their anger, and then it comes out destructively. They try to keep it down, then it explodes. But Carla McLaren, when she talks about each of these emotions, it's really fascinating. She gives them a name. So with anger, she calls it, because it's signaling to us something valuable that's like almost a language of the soul. It's an honorable sentry. So a sentry would be the one that guards the castle. It's willing to kill to protect the king and the queen. It's got boundaries. It's got strength. It says no. Anger is very, very valuable. And I think it's valuable for people to get to know their anger, express it, and learn how to manage it so it doesn't explode. Because then we typically feel ashamed and then we want to hide. But it's a powerful, truthful energy, if that's helpful.
Very, thank you.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, it's often really signaling that there's been a trespass of boundaries.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So who else would like to share? Any-
Yeah.
I'll speak up. Just a couple of thoughts. The punishes brings to mind violence, which is not like that at all. the disciplines, in our discussion here, that came up as a parent-child kind of thing. But I'm not real comfortable with one person in a relationship disciplining the other person in the relationship. What's your take on that?
Are you saying one person in a relationship disciplines the other, but you're not talking about parent-child?
No, in a parent-child situation, you know, an honest or unaware discipline would probably be an okay thing. But in a relationship, one partner disciplining the other, that feels uncomfortable.
So it seems like, from what you're saying, that you're relating discipline to being harsh and correcting and
Control.
right, versus what about discipline like learning how to manage and control yourself and your behavior?
Well, self-discipline.
Yeah, that's what I think.
Self-discipline.
I think the interpretation is maybe that you're thinking that we're saying, oh, we're disciplining others. This very much relates to the relationship with self. And I think that I mentioned a little bit about that. It's the immature masculine might punish itself. As a parent, yes, it might punish children. But as we evolve, we choose, like a very healthy thing is to have self-discipline. So this is more about self-regulation than regulating another. I understand what you were thinking there. Yeah, we're not condoning that we're disciplining each other, but we might reflect with each other as we move through life.
I would help you be disciplined in the ways you want to be, and you help me be disciplined the way I want to be. But I give her the authority to point out things and share her something I may not be seeing. So discipline in its highest is more like a disciple, a student. She and I both love to learn. We're always learning new things. So I support her in a lot of the things she's learning, and she supports me. I wouldn't be able to grow the way I grow without Joy's support. She's just gold. And it goes the other way. But part of the maturity comes with the discipline, where she might go, I can't let myself just be angry at you and explode. I need to learn how to manage my anger, or I need to manage my anger. So the evolved consciousness is discipline. Almost like a warrior that would say, it's time to go home. We're done here. Or do the right thing when it's not easy. I'm thinking of that more as a masculine trait that a man or a woman could employ, if that's helpful.
Different levels to the
Yeah, there's a lot of levels to a lot of these, yeah. But no, we're not saying that a partner would discipline the other partner, no. No, it's internal, yeah. Yes,
Yeah.
Sherry.
Could you explain what you mean by steadfastly responsible? I don't understand. We don't understand.
So for me, versus hit and miss responsible. I'm responsible and I stop drinking for 2 months, and then I drink for 2 more months, and then I stop drinking for 2 months. That's not steadfast.
Okay, but how does that help one stop carrying extra burdens or taking on obligations?
Well, these are extra burdens that really don't help anybody by how you're taking them on.
To me, when I think about responsibility, and once again, it's internal, right? So I'm choosing to respond in my life. I'm choosing to know what's mine and what's another. So it's back to the whole boundary thing. I'm steadfast in, this is mine to do. I'll take responsibility for dinner tonight. You know, I'm this very simple example.
Yeah.
As opposed to, and be clear on that and be solid in my responsibility.
So responsibility with boundaries.
Responsibility, yeah, but not taking on more than is mine.
Okay.
And that's an overcompensation. A lot of these in the young are overcompensations.
Yeah, okay.
And there's probably a lot of ways to word them.
So like the power to say no.
The power to say no, or the power to say yes. This is mine. I'm going to take responsibility for what I said.
Right.
And I'm going to ask and I'm going to apologize. I'm steadfast in my ability to respond and to know what's mine. Yeah.
I had two boys who were dealing with mental illness, serious, and serious drug abuse. They were addicted. It was horrific for 4 or 5 years. So being steadfastly responsible, you said no, that if you guys use drugs, you can't live in the house. The steadfast is the solid boundary that says that won't happen. Prior to learning how to hold that boundary, we didn't, and we felt obligated. We were loving them. We're their parents. We have to try to support. No, that behavior, we had extra burden for a few years until we learned that we were caretaking them. Now, when we were steadfastly responsible and said, you can't live in the house, did we have to be mean about it? No. In fact, we were caring. We said, we care about you too much than to let you do that here. But whether you understand it or not, you can no longer live here. We need to move on with our lives.
I was going to say that could also play out on the intuitive level of being nurturing and caring, right? And then ending up being a martyr and self-sacrificing.
Yeah.
So once again, the danger about presenting anything like this is if we leave it up here and it becomes conceptual, we're not trying to encourage categories as much as self-reflection. I mean, really, honestly, this is all about self-reflection. And Heidi, how'd it go looking at the masculine? I mean, Heather, yeah.
I know I've already spoken.
That's okay. That's okay.
But it's so helpful to share analogies like you just did, because life just teaches us.
Yeah.
And a couple of my teachers for balancing all this, one has been being a teacher, and I'm not a parent, but I have to constantly kind and clear, boundaries, respect, compassion, and discipline. And if I'm off on any of those, it comes back to bite me. Like I see it literally in my students.
In your what?
In my students. Like I see that.
Yeah, if you're out of balance when you express, it blows up in front of you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the longer I've taught, it's like, especially the little ones, I have to be just, we're not doing that right now.
Yeah.
Like, it's just really like, because if I get too into the explaining, but then if I'm too authoritative, that doesn't feel good to me. That doesn't work. So that's been a beautiful playground for me.
It has.
And then also I've seen how one can hide with a persona. For instance, I was with someone who was great at many things and provider and everything and loved to do things for me, and when I would say we need to talk about this, like there were certain things not working emotionally, communication, and I was met with, but what about this thing I did for you? And I'd be like, yeah, that's so nice, that's great, thank you, but we need to talk about this. And that wasn't happening. And then I became the bad guy or girl. And then that's when I realized, wow, this is not reciprocal. I can't, I'm not feeling like I can do anything here.
Yeah.
So there's a way, like the provider role, or the compassionate giver or receiver, that we can sink into that and avoid.
Yeah.
And I've seen that firsthand.
You're right.
So.
You're right. Very much so. And I loved hearing that you appreciate that teaching is an extraordinary vehicle for you to work within your consciousness to stay in balance. And if you're not, boy, do you get to learn, and then you get to put your learning into practice. So, a wonderful thing. Just like a relationship, it's the same. It's the same. When I'm off with her, it hurts me so much. I just have to say, you know what, that was me, I was wrong. That's my pattern. I'm sorry, I don't want to treat you that way. This is mine.
That's
It's hard for a lot of
steadfast
people to take
responsibility,
on.
right? That's
Definitely.
taking full responsibility.
Yeah.
Does anyone else
Do we
want-
have time to?
Yeah.
Sure.
So I have a question about cultivating these, the
Wait to hear her
evolution.
response.
Yes, the evolution of some of these
Oh,
areas.
yeah,
And
great.
so for me, I have a situation coming that I have, I don't really want to share too much, but it's about something that I am standing up and telling the truth because that's something I value highly. It's also going to be very, I don't want to affirm that, but I feel like it's going to be very difficult to be clear, to be confident, to be non-emotional in my telling. And because it's a legal situation, there's a lot of concern about being attacked verbally and then getting to that emotional place and not being able to be clear and concise and be able to speak my truth. And so it's a situational thing because
Right.
I feel like when they're, probably in conflict in a relationship, it would have the same effect, but it's so immediate. Rather, now I have this time to cultivate, kind of prepare myself
Yes.
for that situation. And I don't want to cultivate, the negative aspects of the masculine or put on a
Right.
brave face, or I don't want to withhold or avoid the situation.
Right.
So I'm really I'd love some
Yeah.
kind of insight there.
When you were talking, I could really feel the emotion.
Yeah.
Every time you said the emotion, and how much time, when is this happening?
Well,
Do you have some time to cultivate?
I have to do an online deposition in June, and the trial will start after that, and then I'll probably have to testify in December.
Yeah.
And it's been 7 years coming.
Wow.
So
Wow.
And you realize that that could include a cross-examination
Exactly.
and a polarizing energy.
Yeah.
Have
Yeah.
you ever encountered Marshall Rosenberg's work?
Yeah, I love nonviolent communication.
So those
Yeah.
4 steps,
Yeah, that's
because
good.
they're all ownership oriented, would allow you to stay, let alone masculine and feminine, in your power. Because it's what you observe, what you feel, what you need, and your request. And that's probably going to be, that might not cover everything you're going to say,
Yeah.
but it would certainly be saying it from an empowered, genuine place
Yeah.
that isn't punishing,
Right.
that isn't blaming.
Or defensive.
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
I was also, as you were speaking, because I could feel maybe the concern that you might get too emotional.
Yeah.
Because the emotions are so present. And I think that's part of why I asked, how much time do you have? Because
Yeah.
I was seeing you practice. I was seeing you step into the truth, and as you were just speaking about it, bringing the emotions, because that is part of what is needed to be felt and seen by the powers that be.
Exactly. I want to have my emotions,
Yeah.
but not let them get
Right.
out of.
Dominate you.
And
right?
Exactly.
And
Right.
so, like, speaking about it tonight,
Yeah.
and noticing that you were able to speak about it, feel the emotions. Those of us that are empathic and highly attuned, we could feel there's emotions there, and you stayed on course
Yeah.
in your strength. So maybe the nonviolent, and also practice sharing it with some other people.
That's
as
something I
witness.
haven't done either. That's
Yeah.
really a good idea.
And in general,
That's a really good idea.
Any kind of courageous conversations where we're risking, where they're charged, or even we talked about the anger and needing to then find a way to be responsible in sharing it. It can be really healthy to practice if it's alone, practice with a recorder, but also see if someone's willing to let you have a few rounds so you can shake it out and feel it out before
That's a really good idea.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And if you look at this only as this legal situation that you have to deal with, if you look at it underneath what I might refer to as soul's curriculum, if you can identify what the actual triumph will be if you do this well,
Wow.
and you go honor, integrity, emotional strength, and that becomes your intention. This is a gift beyond measure for you, not to do perfectly, But those frequencies that are over here on the masculine or even on the feminine, you can just open to this, and practicing will help. But you hear what I'm saying?
Oh, I do.
Because there's triumph here, and that's why it's so darn risky, is you don't really know how it will go until it's over. But you can aim high. Go for it. Whatever those high frequencies are, honor, integrity, transparency, undefended. It's powerful, powerful opportunity. My working with my sons grew me psychologically and spiritually like I can't believe. But it was hard. Yeah. So beautiful.
Yeah, this whole arena of living life and being students along the way and cutting ourselves some slack and learning as we go, and having the courage to show up and learn and misstep and learn. It's such a key to growth.
Yeah.
I feel like just bringing it up every time I'm, in a group. It's like, let's remember to take it easy on ourselves. Remember we're growing. Remember everything is an opportunity, and just keep learning and just keep learning. But you are clearly being handed quite a big growth passage.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
wishing
it's
you
a sacred
really well on that. Yeah, blessings on that.
This helped a lot. Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, good. I will tell you, Joy developed this primarily, but a tool for working with all of the masculine and feminine. That identification, some of the work we've done, but even further. So it's available. And she even developed all the things you can do to cultivate masculine evolution, feminine evolution, with specifics and practices, 12 or 14 of them for each, how to practice it in relationships so you both can bring masculine and feminine to an intimate relationship. This is available. But so if you guys if you take your phone to the QR code, you'll get the replay from when we talked about all of this last week. You'll get all of these slides, and you'll get this exploration tool that has so many tools in it. It's
Well, because you
remarkable.
asked, how do I cultivate?
Right.
And
Right.
I'll just give you some examples. I shared a little bit about me really understanding that I wanted to rest more in the feminine. I had been using my strength, assertive, create a life for myself muscle enough. And so sensory immersion and really like slowing down when I ate, enjoying the sensualities of life. I have an emotional depth practice in here to really give ourselves room and space to feel our feelings, to cultivate. Visual anchors, those are a couple of the ideas. Sacred feminine study, actually learning more and finding more deities or goddesses or anything that might inspire us into the feminine.
Yeah, you can have a whole set of allies that go into that experience with you that you can welcome and cultivate before you get there.
And in the masculine, one of the activities is truth journaling, having a truth journal and speaking honestly with self and finding that. Doing more authentic appreciation and providing and giving compliments, practicing that to cultivate the masculine, setting boundaries, which of course
Powerful movement, whatever dance,
sacred masculine
you're going to
study.
be there with your body, and if your body is actually in a state that you might you prefer, let it be included in the process.
We have a retreat coming up in Ashland, and we're going to do a little dabble into some of this, less conceptual, more experiential. And so one of the things we'll be doing is dancing and having men and women dance the feminine in their own expression of that and dance the masculine, which of course is a great way. But to dance the feminine and dance the masculine, that's an assignment for anyone who so chooses to play with it. Find some music that brings out your strength, your assertive, your directional movement, and then find some music that's a little more fluid and lyrical and let yourself move into that. So anyway, this
for
also,
Thank you very much.
And this also talks a little bit about if you are in a relationship, how you can play with each other in the polarities, different activities that can actually bring out the masculine and feminine
In both of us.
in both of us. In both of us. Yeah. Yeah.
I find it's really hard to grow all this when you don't have someone that's willing to play the game. Where do you go from here?
Yeah. Well, is there anybody here in this room that you could say, could we get together and talk about this a little bit, do you think? No?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't mean to make you uncomfortable, but how many would be willing to get together with her to talk more about this? Because it obviously matters to you.
And to practice, I hear you. It's to have a practice buddy, to have people in our lives. I want to say I feel very blessed that I have a partner, and I've spent a decent amount of my adult life single as well. And I remember when I was single and I was with a couple and I said something to that effect, like I want a relationship. And I remember the man in that relationship saying, every single person in your life, you're having a relationship. And I really took it to heart. And so similar to what you're saying, there's so many people that want to be intimate and share. Maybe they're not your forever partner, but I think we can find allies and buddies to practice with. And I know that I don't count on this man for all of it. You know, I also seek out other people in my life. And honestly, it just happens. I mean, I notice at work, you know, in who we're working with, that I have lots of opportunities to play and practice, both holding space or being the initiator and following.